The rain had already washed half the dirt from her face when the motorcycle riders spotted her on the side of the empty rural road. She sat on the gravel with her knees pulled tightly to her chest, soaked, shivering, and looking as though the world had finally become too heavy to hold. When they approached, she didn't even flinch, just whispered, in a trembling voice, "Just end it now, please." Those words hit the oldest rider, Jack, like a punch to the chest. He had heard desperation before, but never like this, never in a voice that sounded like it had run out of places to hide. The group gathered around her carefully, speaking softly, asking if she was hurt. She didn't answer. She simply reached for the hem of her shirt, lifted it shakily, and showed them the faded hospital band still wrapped around her ribs, her name barely readable. That tiny bracelet made the riders freeze. It wasn't a wound or a scar, it was a silent cry for help from someone who had been discharged too soon, sent out into the world with nothing but fear still clinging to her. Before we continue the story, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment on the channel StorySphere to support more emotional and inspiring videos like this one. Your support helps us bring powerful stories that remind us all of the importance of kindness. Her name was Emily. 23, soft-spoken, and carrying a heartbreak she was too afraid to explain. Jack offered her his jacket, another rider handed her water, and someone quietly turned off their engines to make the world feel less overwhelming for her. At first, Emily kept her eyes on the ground, as though looking at anyone might break her. But as the rain eased and the riders sat down with her on the gravel, no rush, no pressure, she finally whispered, "I have nowhere to go. They let me out this morning, said I'm stable. But I don't feel stable. I don't feel anything at all." The group didn't pry. They didn't lecture. They simply listened. And for the first time in days, Emily talked. Not about the details of her pain, just about loneliness, fear, and the feeling of being invisible in a country full of people rushing past. Jack nodded, understanding more than he showed. "You're not alone today," he told her. "Not on our watch." The riders brought Emily to a small diner in town. The owner, an older woman named Grace, took one look at her and realized she didn't need questions, she needed warmth. A hot meal appeared in front of Emily within minutes. A dry sweater, too, pulled from the lost and found box. Grace even dried her hair with a towel like she was her own daughter. As they ate together, the writers shared stories, not dramatic ones, but real ones. Times they had struggled. Times they had felt scared. Times they had needed someone. Emily's shoulders loosened. Her eyes lifted. Slowly, she realized that kindness didn't always come from the people you expected. Sometimes it came roaring in on motorcycles. Over the next few hours, Jack made some calls. A local community center volunteer arrived, offering not just resources but genuine support, counseling options, temporary shelter, and a ride whenever she needed one. Emily listened carefully, her voice still shaking, but no longer hopeless. What surprised her most was how the writers never treated her like a burden. They treated her like someone worth showing up for. Someone worth protecting. Someone who still had a future. By the time the sun began dipping behind the town's old buildings, Emily stood beside the bikes with steadier feet. She looked at Jack and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." Jack smiled gently. "The world's tough," he said. "But it's also full of people who care. You just met a few." Emily wasn't suddenly healed. No miracle replaced her pain overnight. But she no longer stood on that dark road alone. She had strangers who became protectors, a warm place waiting for her, and a small spark of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. As the riders watched the volunteer drive her towards safety, Grace stood with them on the sidewalk and said, "Sometimes, kindness isn't about fixing everything. It's about making sure someone survives the moment they almost give up." In the end, Emily didn't just find help, she found proof that kindness can reach us even at our lowest moment. And sometimes, the people who save us are the ones we never expected to meet. Let this story remind us all to slow down, notice the people around us, and offer kindness whenever we can. You never know whose life you might change simply by caring.